Hi everyone, remember me? I am back with like a sit down video. Obviously I say, if you saw it, my last video in here was a little bit different because it was the vlog to end my PhD. I spent 8 days, I think it was in the end, vlogging that sort of wrapping up experience of finalising the written version of my PhD. Thank you, traffic. Great timing. So I vlogged that. It was an emotional roller coaster if you saw that. I cried, I laughed, I became apathetic, I worried, I was anxious, I was happy, what have you. It was a strange time, and to be honest, the following week has also been a strange time. It's just over a week now since I submitted and I'm definitely feeling strange. Life is not back to normal. Actually, life doesn't really have a normal for me anymore because that's 6.5 years I've spent writing this PhD and I'm a new person now, you know, from who I was when I started my PhD, or a slightly updated, upgraded version, and there's so much still going on in my life, but good things. So yeah, it's been busy and weird and lots of things are still a mess. I'm catching up on a lot of things, but one of those things that I'm excited to catch up on is reading. I feel like I haven't been reading as much recently, this year in general in fact, and there's so many books that I've been looking forward to that have been sitting on my shelves, that have been sitting on my TBR, that I've been buying amidst all this stress, that I can't wait to read now that I'm free. And I really feel like I'm going to be reading more, maybe not like this week specifically, but in particular things that are maybe a little bit denser, maybe some non-fiction that I've been putting off because I've had my mind so focused on the PhD. And I just wanted to sit down and chat with you and share some of those books with you. This one's definitely, I think, going to be a little bit chatty, a little bit rambly. It's been a while since I filmed a sit down video and my brain is a little bit chaotic, but you know, I'm feeling good, I'm happy with where things are, and I'm looking forward to reading a lot of these and talking about them with you all. Generally speaking, on my channel I really want to do some new, fun, innovative things for me. I want to start doing video essays, I want to do videos on antiquity, I want to do videos on writing and publishing, and that's all stuff that is, you know, like on my mind, that I'm planning, but you know, it takes some time and it's only been a week, so I thought this would be a nice little relaxed video to come back with. However, if you do have any requests in terms of video essays or antiquity based or writing based videos, anything a little bit more in depth that you'd like to see on my channel, let me know because I'll add it to the list. I'm really looking forward to what I'm going to be able to do now that I have a little bit more free time. So yeah, I think that covers all of the rambly introductions to this video. Oh, in fact, actually, I should probably also mention whilst I'm here, because, you know, you're meant to publicise this stuff, aren't you? I do have a new book out. In fact, I'll go grab it. Quite literally 4 days after I submitted my PhD, this came out, which is Egyptian Myths. This is my second children's non-fiction book, and it's the third book in a series that are being published by DK on mythology from around the world. And as an ancient historian, I have written both the Greek myths volume and now the Egyptian myths volume, which is illustrated by Katie Ponder, as are all of the books in the series. Her illustrations are stunning. Let me give you a glimpse inside. Here's one of the god spreads, so we have lots of information about Horus and Set. Here's a story spread here. This is King Khufu and the Magician. Love this story, actually. I mean, I love them all, but I wrote this book last year and it sort of all got finalised and edited at the beginning of this year, and because of that it's been a while. I've been waiting for it to be out there in the world and I'm so pleased that it finally is and you can all read it. It is aimed at children from around age 7 to 11 years old, but I've had feedback from a lot of adults that they've really enjoyed it too. I really love writing these books for children and introducing children to these topics because, you know, books like this are exactly how I got into ancient history and what led me to do a PhD in the first place. So yeah, this is out now. I'll have it linked in the description box down below. I love it. I'm so proud of it, and I hope that you and all the kids in your life will enjoy it as well. So that definitely covers it, right? Like, there can't possibly be anything else to talk about beside the books. Again, I am sorry that I'm a little bit rambling. Sit down videos are something I am out of practice with and my brain is pretty chaotic at the moment. So yeah, There's a ton of books on my TBR, there's way more than are in the pile in front of me, but these are some of the ones that like have been on my mind for the past few months. I really want to get to, and I haven't been able to, and in particular, like I said, some non-fiction books that I'm so excited to finally read and learn new things through, because I feel like I haven't had the capacity to really engage with and learn as much outside of my PhD as I would like to this year. So yeah, let's just crack on and have a look, shall we? So the first book I've actually already started, so that's a nice easy one. It's also very short, so I'm going to read it pretty quickly, and that is The Appendix, Trans-Masculine Joy in a Transphobic Culture by Liam Coinman, and this is published by 404 Inc., particularly in their 404 Inkling series. So they have a whole series of these which are little books on very specific subjects which I absolutely adore. I previously read Love That Journey for Me, which was all about the queer revolution of the TV show Schitt's Creek, and adored it, so I wanted to check out more in the series. And this one is, I mean, again, pretty self-explanatory from the title. It's about finding trans-masculine joy in a transphobic culture. So the author opens with this project that they started where they were recording all of the transphobia as a trans man that they were encountering on an everyday basis. And then they started to realise how damaging that was for them, not only experiencing the transphobia, but like paying so much heed to it that they were making note of it and compiling this almost database was even more damaging for them personally. Of course, we need to acknowledge transphobia. So Liam began with this project, but then by the time he came to writing this book, he completely changed the sort of path he was taking with it, and decided to focus on trans-masculine joy, which is where I'm kind of at. Like, I've read the introduction and I've just started chapter 1. Yeah, that is one that is on the list and I'm hoping to finish soon. Then there are actually 2 more books on this pile that I've already started. So the first one is The Long Lost Home by Mary Rose Wood, which is book 6 in the Incorrigible Children of Ashton Place series. I've gone on and on about this series for years now if you've been watching my channel. It's a middle grade series and it's hands down one of my favourite middle grade series of all time, if not my favourite middle grade series I read as an adult, because I didn't read these as a kid. My first encounter was with them as an adult and I have adored every single one. This is also the final book and I've sort of been putting off reading it because I love them so much. I don't want the series to be over. However, as soon as I submitted that PhD, the only thing I could focus on was something light and fluffy and fun and escapist, and it was this. This was what I wanted to read and it was there for me at the perfect time, so I basically picked it up the day after, and I'm now maybe like a fifth of the way through. I still have a chunk to go, but I'm really, really enjoying it. I definitely see myself rereading this series in the future. It's set in 1800s England in particular, although this book primarily, or at least at the beginning, takes place in Russia, and it's about a young governess who has been enlisted to teach and care for the wards of a wealthy lord and lady, and these wards are 3 little children that were found in the woods having been raised by wolves, so they have a lot to learn. Then the next book I am terribly far into. I'm about 40 pages in, but I started this when I was in Italy about a month ago for my friend Jess's wedding. Jess is one of my best friends in the whole world. I've known her for more than a decade now and I was so excited for her wedding to her partner, to her husband now. It'd been something we've been waiting a long time for and it was such a wonderful trip. And whilst I was there I thought, I'm going to take a romance novel called First Comes Marriage because that sounds very apt. This is a historical Regency romance, part of the Huxtable family novel series by Mary Barlow. Barlow? I think so. That font is not the easiest to read. Mary Barlow, yeah. And I read 40 pages, but to be honest, I was absolutely kaput during that holiday. I was having a lovely time seeing friends. I was really exhausted from being in the final weeks of my PhD, and I did not read much at all. I mainly just like stared at the sunshine with my sunglasses on, obviously, swam around in the pool and chatted with my friends. So I would like to get back to this and finish it now that I've started it because I was enjoying it, and I feel like now that I'm done with my PhD, I don't want all these half-finished or partly finished books hanging around me. I want to get them done. On the topic of finishing, let's talk about finishing a series as opposed to a book, because I really want to get around to As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This is the 3rd and final book in a YA thriller trilogy by Holly Jackson that began with A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I've read the first 2 books, I read both of them during my PhD, I interviewed Holly when the first book came out. It's a series I have been following avidly and really enjoying since it was first released, and I feel like has been with me for a few years now, and I only haven't read this book now because I've been so stressed since it came out, and I cannot wait to finally get around to it because I feel like it's going to be the end of something else when I do. I really like Holly Jackson's writing. She is such a good writer when it comes to throwing red herrings and sort of dead-end clues at you and taking you on this wild ride and journey. I never know what's going to happen in her thrillers, and they are such good fun. I actually have another thriller sequel on my list as well, and that is The Family Remains by Lisa Jewell. I've just accidentally turned my television on, so I'm just gonna turn that off. Which just came out. I actually pre-ordered this book because I loved The Family Upstairs, which was book 1, and it was one of those thrillers that you don't necessarily expect there to be a sequel. Like, it very much rounds up, it ends, it feels complete. But then when I heard there was going to be a sequel, it was so obvious what that sequel would revolve around. Like, when you're at the end of the book, you can tell that there is this possibility that there are questions that could still be like delved deeper into for answers, and I'm really excited to see what she does in this book because I love Lisa Jewell. I actually first was introduced to her through The Family Upstairs and really got into her writing, and this is the only book of hers that's a sequel that I know of, and certainly that I've picked up, so it'll be interesting to see what she does because I think the art of writing a sequel is quite different from writing a first book in a series or a standalone. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I love Lisa Jewell's writing. She writes really like compelling sort of domestic thrillers which are kind of slow paced but so absorbing. Her characters are absolutely fascinating, and yeah, she just has a real way with words and creating immersive atmosphere and intriguing characters, so cannot wait for this. Then I think the last book on my pile that is fiction is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. Now the reason this one's so high up on my TBR is because of a vlog I filmed a couple of months ago, I think it was, where I read books that had been specifically picked and recommended to me, for me, by a professional bibliologist. So I tried out this service where you were recommended books based on your taste. They were very personalised recommendations, and I was recommended 3 books and I read 2 of them in that video. Loved those 2 books, like absolutely loved them. So I'm entirely convinced that I'm going to love the 3rd recommendation that my bibliologist gave me because they nailed me so well on the other 2. And this, I think, is a sort of feminist horror, dark academia type book, although there might be a sort of paranormal undertone. It's set in an old boarding school. I'm not sure if it's set over 2 time periods. You hear about events of the past in the 1900s where 2 students, Flo and Clara, fall in love and are brought together by their obsession for a scandalous memoir, and then dark things start to happen. But it's now the present, and we have a new group going to this boarding school, not to board but to film a documentary, and again strange things start to happen. So I am very intrigued by that. I've heard really interesting things and I'm just convinced I'm going to love it because it came from my bibliologist recommendations and she did so well with the other 2. It was quite chunky though, so I did feel a little bit too stressed and a little bit too busy to read it at the time, and I've been waiting for a little bit more freedom, which I have now. Right, so then let's talk about the non-fiction as mentioned. So the first one on my pile here is Witches, Witch Hunting and Women by Silvia Federici. So Silvia Federici is a feminist writer. She's been around for a long time. My mum's a big fan of her. Been recommending her book to me for years, and this is actually a more recent book that she released about kind of modern day like witch hunts, as in that metaphorically representing the way that women are treated by society, and it's very short and I thought it would be a really interesting take and metaphor to be made between kind of like women in the past and women now. Don't really know what else to expect except for the fact that, you know, I've heard a lot about Silvia Federici and have been wanting to read this book, so that's why it's on the list. It's not very long, don't have much else to say. The next one is The Bible, Volume 1, foreword by Lauren James and edited by Lauren Nicodemus and Ellen Desmond. These are personal narratives and essays about bisexuality. So we have a collection of different writers in here who have written about their experiences of bisexuality and what that means to them, how others have treated them, what their lives are, when did they find out, when did they realise, etc, etc, all the stuff related to kind of any sexuality as you would expect. And I picked this up a while ago because I rarely read a book that focuses on the bisexual experience or the bisexual experiences, because of course there's no like one experience for everybody, and I like the idea that this, you know, encompasses lots of different people's experiences. I wonder myself if any of my own experiences will compare to theirs, but even if they don't, it will just be interesting to hear from different people, because I think, you know, there still exists a lot of biphobia outside and inside of the LGBTQ+ community, so it's kind of just like a nice little bit of solidarity to read from other people who identify as the same sexuality as you. And it's the first in a series. The second one is the Bible New Testimonials, so if I like this I can pick up book 2. Then we have a non-fiction book I was sent by Pan Macmillan a little while ago and I've been really looking forward to reading, which is The Sleeping Beauties and Other Stories of Mystery Illnesses by Susan O'Sullivan. I've been really wanting to try some non-fiction on topics I don't typically read about. I've read some like medical non-fiction before, particularly things like Pain and Prejudice, which is about the treatment of women's pain, but generally speaking I would not say it's something I've read much about, and I thought that this sounded really, really interesting, and I just want to consume more non-fiction and watch more documentaries that are just interesting. Like I want to watch more nature documentaries and like just fun, random, specific documentaries about random things, and read more books on topics I've never read about before that I'm not going to write an essay on, that I'm not going to become an expert in, that maybe don't even really have much relevance to my life but are just interesting. That's really what I'm craving at the moment, because I feel like I've been lacking that in my life. So this is one of them. The title is pretty self-explanatory. It's about like strange mystery illnesses. Next we do have a book on a topic I've actually read quite a lot about, and that is Brick by Brick: How We Build a World Without Prisons, collated by the Credo Community Project. And this is a book, I mean pretty much again that has a self-explanatory title, but in the past I've read a lot of books on the prison system, the problems with the prison system, the history of the prison system, the inequalities and the racism and the effects of the prison systems, particularly in the US and the UK. However, I haven't often come across a book with the sole focus of looking at what a post-prison world looks like, and what we do as a society in a post-prison system, how we like reform the justice system, etc, etc. And I really like the sound of this. It was in a bookshop in Edinburgh called Lighthouse Books, which always has a really interesting selection of non-fiction, and I decided to pick it up on a whim, but knew it probably wasn't going to get read until after the PhD, so here we are. I'm ready to read. Also kind of on the medical topic, we have Mad, Bad and Sad: A History of Women and the Mind Doctors from 1800 to the Present. Now if I have read anything about medicine, it's predominantly been on this topic, which is on like mental health medicine, and in particular the treatment of women's mental health throughout the ages. I've read a few books and watched a few documentaries on topics like hysteria and again the treatment of women's mental health, and this was a book I picked up a while ago, but it is chunky so I haven't gotten round to it, but I am so excited to. Like this has been so high on my TBR for such a long time. I've just been waiting for a little inkling of freedom to get around to it. It obviously talks about, you know, the history of the treatment of women's mental health, but it does go into the modern day, so I wonder if it will trace kind of the persistent issues and like the persistent kind of stereotypes and stigma around those things that have carried on from the 1800s, although of course this is a topic that goes well beyond the 1800s, before the 1800s, but we have a lot of records for the treatment of women's mental health from the 1800s, and there was like a real focus on it, particularly in British culture. In the 1800s and early 1900s. So yeah, I think this is going to be a really informative book. I've read really good reviews and I'm looking forward to reading it. Then lastly, for the pile in front of me, we have The Battle of the Sexes in Science Fiction. So something I'm really keen to read more of at the moment is television, film and literary criticism, so books that look at pop culture, that look at the media we consume, and different themes on those subjects. So this is one again that's been sitting on my bookshelf for a little while, and it's specifically about kind of sexism in science fiction. It's about the development of like the feminist sci-fi genre. Don't know what to expect, obviously haven't read it, but that's what I'm hoping for. So yeah, that is the last book on my pile. There are obviously way more books in that I'm looking forward to reading, but I thought I would just pick out the ones that had me most excited at the moment, that I really just want to sit down and read all at once, but I'm gonna have to wait and read them all in turn. And I'd love to hear from you if you have read any of these and can tell me where to start, because that might be helpful. I'd also really love, on a slightly different topic, some TV show recommendations, because I am like 10 episodes away from finishing The Mentalist, which has been my current show, which has been the show that got me through the end of my PhD, but I'm on season 7, I'm nearly at the end, and I have no idea what I'm going to watch after. I watched all of Criminal Minds before that, I watched all of Bones before that, I watched all of Elementary before that, and I don't know what I'm gonna watch next. I need something like long and chunky that I can put on in the background, which has a kind of like Monster of the Week, Criminal of the Week, Mystery of the Week type structure, which is what I really like, but also has characters and protagonists that I can get invested in. So yeah, no medical dramas, but if you have any recommendations of any kind of like fantastical, supernatural, or criminal mystery shows, please let me know, because I'm really running out of shows to watch and I need something, so yeah. I think that pretty much covers it though. I have rambled on about everything from PhDs to writing to reading TBRs, non-fiction and television. Well done if you stuck it out to the end and managed to understand half of what I said, because I feel like I am very rambly at the moment and maybe not the most articulate, so thanks. And thanks again for bearing with me whilst there's not been a ton of content on here, obviously you know why, but now I'm hoping that I'll be able to create some really fun new stuff. So yeah, looking forward to it, and I'll see you all again in the next one. Bye everyone.